Hello. The following information is being presented as part of the Governor Mifflin Area Citizens Academy that was developed by the 5 communities and school district in the Governor Mifflin area. The 5 communities in the Governor Mifflin School District include Brecknock Township, Cumru Township, Kenhorst Borough, Moulton Borough, and Shillington Borough. The following information is being presented in order to provide you with a better understanding of the organization and operation of the local units of government in the Governor Mifflin area and to help you become more involved in your local community. We hope you find the material helpful, and a copy of this recording may be obtained at any of the municipal offices or the school district administration building. The Governor Mifflin Area Citizens Academy is made possible through a grant from the Russell L. Hiller Charitable Trust Fund of the Berks County Community Foundation.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Widener. I am the Emergency Management Coordinator for Lower Heidelberg Township and South Heidelberg Township. And what I'm here to speak to you about today is what exactly emergency management is. Emergency management is defined as the process of dealing with extreme events that can disrupt communities, cause extensive damage, or affect a large number of people. Emergency management goes beyond what is normally encountered on a daily basis. Police, fire, and EMS agencies all deal with emergencies on a daily basis, and they can do that with the resources and personnel that they have available to them. There are certain events, though, however, that go above and beyond what the normal incidents that they encounter daily, and that's when emergency management comes into play. When we talk about emergency management, there's 5 distinct phases that we look at. The first thing we do in emergency management is we do the prevention phase. So emergency management coordinators and other emergency responders will do what we can to prevent certain disasters from occurring. And incidents such as this include what probably most people are familiar with fire prevention activities, such as having smoke alarms in our homes, knowing 2 ways out of your house in case of a fire and things like that. Obviously, we're not going to be able to prevent every type of emergency from occurring, so we then need to take actions to minimize the impact of those disasters, and that's called mitigation. Now, mitigation are those actions that are taken to minimize the effects of the disasters that we cannot prevent. An example of a mitigation method, the most prominent one in Berks County, is the creation of Blue Marsh Lake. Back in the mid to early 70s, Hurricane Agnes severely flooded downtown Reading, and what they found is that by creating Blue Marsh Dam, that would minimize the effects of future flooding in Reading. So obviously there's certain events that even though we can't prevent, we minimize those events, but they're still going to occur. So we need to go on to the next phase, which is preparedness. Now, preparedness is probably one of the most frequent activities in the emergency management phase that we'll see. And preparedness is those measures that prepare responding forces and citizens to take prompt action. And during the preparedness phase, we develop emergency plans, we conduct training, we conduct exercises to make sure that we're prepared to respond to those particular types of disasters. Now, unfortunately, no matter what we do for prevention, mitigation, and preparedness, disasters are still going to happen. So we need to look at the 4th phase of the process, which is response. And this is the phase that probably everybody sees. This is where the fire department comes out to rescue people, the police officers, the EMS agencies handle motor vehicle accidents. We do evacuations if we have a community-wide disaster, things like that. The last phase is what's called the recovery phase. This is probably the most manpower intensive phase of the whole process. Now this is where we go back to and correct the problems or correct the issues that the disaster caused, such as rebuilding homes that may have been damaged. We clean up debris that may have come down during a storm and situations like that. Now once we're done with the recovery process though, the emergency management process doesn't end. It's known as what's a cyclical process, whereas once you're done with the recovery process, you go right back into the prevention process. So we look at what we can do to prevent this type of incident from occurring again, and then we move to the mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So the whole process is an ongoing process that pretty much never ends. In emergency management, there are particular levels of the emergency management process, and there are 5 distinct levels of emergency management in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. No matter what the emergency is, it always starts at the local level. So as elected officials, as local emergency responders, no matter what the disaster is, whether it affects one municipality or 100 municipalities, it's always going to start at the municipal level. Now at this municipal level, the initial response is from the local emergency services providers, your local police, fire, EMS, and your local emergency management agency, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The response time is immediate. Again, your local service providers are out the door with their resources, fire trucks, police, EMS, within a couple minutes of knowing about it. They need to be able to handle the incident at the local level until assistance is provided, if need be. If the emergency or if the disaster is beyond the resources of the local level, then it gets escalated to the next level of emergency management, which is the county level. The county level takes place when it's beyond the local resources or if the disaster affects more than one municipality. For instance, back in June of 2006, we had some severe rain that caused flooding of the Schuylkill River. Now the Schuylkill River goes through, I believe, approximately 7 or 8 different municipalities in Berks County. So because that flooding affected each one of those municipalities, the county emergency management agency then becomes the coordinating agency to help the individual municipalities deal with the particular disaster. And the county emergency management agency is not there to come in and take charge. They are merely there to help the local municipalities coordinate the response. The big thing that the county emergency management does is to make sure the resources are being utilized properly and not duplicated. When you get to a wide-scale disaster like that, you may have 20, 30 fire departments or 20 or 30 EMS agencies responding to that particular incident. So the county will help the municipality coordinate those resources and make sure they're being used appropriately. When it's beyond the resources that the county has, or if the disaster affects more than one county in the state of Pennsylvania, the coordinating entity then becomes the State Emergency Management Agency, or PEMA. Now, the responsibilities of PEMA are very similar to what they are at the county level, except they utilize the resources that the state has available to them. And again, if the incident is beyond the county's capability or if it encompasses more than one county, the State Emergency Management Agency also comes in and helps out with it. The last level of emergency management, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with from the media, is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. If the particular disaster is beyond the state's capabilities or it encompasses more than one state, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, becomes the coordinating entity. And we see this often with the hurricanes and tornadoes that encompass, the Florida and the tornadoes in Tornado Alley in the Midwest, where it goes through more than one state. FEMA assists with the resources that they have. The other big portion that FEMA plays in the emergency management cycle is during that recovery phase that we talked about earlier. FEMA provides financial reimbursement to states, municipalities, certain nonprofit agencies, and also individual homeowners to recoup some of the losses that they incurred during the disaster. So FEMA plays a tremendous role in that, and without their help and without the federal government's help, disaster recovery would be very difficult. So those are the different levels of emergency management, and actually I left one of them out, which is a fairly new concept which has come into the field of emergency management in the past couple of years, and that is the regional level. After September 11th of 2001, the federal government took notice that certain municipalities and counties and states had difficult utilizing their resources. So some of us went to what's called the regional concept, which is one of the things that we're seeing more and more of today. At the municipal level, it is very difficult for some smaller municipalities to function or to provide the emergency management that's required by the law. So some municipalities have approaches from a regional level, whereas they consolidate their resources, they consolidate their personnel, and they work together with neighboring municipalities. The municipalities in Berks County, several of them have done this, and also several of the counties in the state of Pennsylvania have done this and have created regional emergency management agencies. So outside of the different levels of emergency management, there are certain requirements at each level. And what I'd like to do now is focus on the responsibilities of the Municipal Emergency Management Agency. So those are the municipalities such as your boroughs, townships, cities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Back in the mid to late 70s, the federal and state government established a statute called Title 35, which is the Emergency Management Services Code. And in this document, it spells out the requirements for state and local emergency management programs. And in this document, it defines what each municipality is required to do for their emergency management. And it spells out 3 specific things for municipalities to do. The first thing is each municipality must have an emergency management coordinator. Now, this is an individual who in most cases is a volunteer who is tasked with identifying the resources that the municipality has, reaching out to the local emergency service providers and working with them to develop a comprehensive plan on how to respond to community-wide disasters. Now, this municipal coordinator also is tasked with developing an emergency operations plan, and this is a written document that is developed at the municipal level that spells out how they're going to respond to community-wide disasters. So each municipality must have a municipal emergency operations plan. And the final component that they must have is what's called an emergency operations center. Now, this is familiar or could also be looked at by a municipal building that serves as a central meeting point when a disaster occurs. Now, it does not have to be an elaborate facility that has lots of computers and other technology. It just merely has to be an area where the community leaders, the council people, the township supervisors, the mayors, etc., can go during a disaster and discuss how the community is going to respond to that particular disaster. And the emergency management coordinator is responsible for being that person that coordinates the activities in an emergency operations center. This is basically the emergency operations center where all the decisions about the disaster get made. So those are the three components that each municipality must have. The other thing to mention is that in the majority of the municipalities in Berks County and also throughout the state, all of those functions are carried out by volunteers. Very few municipalities have a dedicated person that they pay to do these functions. And this can be a very tremendous amount of work that is undertaken by this one person. So mostly those individuals are volunteers. And it's important for a municipality to look at what they require, what type of resources they have, and make sure that they do have an emergency management coordinator, an emergency operations center, and an emergency operations plan to ensure that you're adequately prepared to respond to a community-wide disaster.